Okay. Before we meditate, I would like a show of hands. How many people were not at the talk last night? Okay. Because I'm going to repeat some of the things I said. Okay, let's meditate. Start with thoughts of goodwill, a wish for true happiness. First for yourself, because true happiness comes from within. Develop your own inner resources. There's nothing selfish about that thought, that may I be happy. May I understand the causes for true happiness and be willing and able to act on them. And then spread the same thought to others. Start with people who are close to your heart, your family, your very close friends. May they find true happiness too. May they be willing to look inside for their happiness. And then spread those thoughts out into ever-widening circles to people you know well and like. To people you like even though you don't know them so well. To people you're more neutral about. And to people you don't like. Remember that the world would be a much better place if everyone could find true happiness within. Spread thoughts of goodwill to people you don't even know. And not just people, to living beings of all kinds. East, west, north, south, above and below, out to infinity. May we all find true happiness in our hearts. Now bring your attention to the breath. And you know the steps. Start with some long breaths. Use the word Bhutto to emphasize the fact that now the breath is coming in with Bhut, now it's going out with To. Then you can discard your meditation word and try to be sensitive to how the breathing feels. Where do you sense it most clearly in the body? Focus your attention there. And then try to stay there as continually as you can to see if long breathing feels good. If you're not there continually, you won't know. It's like watching a TV show. If you watch it for 5 minutes, then go into another room for 10 minutes and then come back, you've missed a lot. You want to see your mind clearly, you want to see the breath clearly, you have to stay right here. And if long breathing feels good, then keep it up. If it doesn't, you can change. And then as the breath starts feeling comfortable, you can make your survey of the body until you're ready to settle down. And choose one spot that feels congenial. Focus your attention there, and then allow your awareness to spread from that spot to fill the whole body. And as long as you can keep up that centered but broad awareness, try to maintain it. If it starts getting blurry, then go back to the survey of the different parts of the body. The question came up yesterday, at what point do you start going for insight practice while you're trying to get the mind still? And there's no clear distinction between tranquility practice and insight practice. Because insight has to do with seeing how you create disturbances for your own mind, either around physical events like pain or unfortunate circumstances, or around purely mental issues. Now in the beginning, we want to clear away those disturbances enough so that you can get the mind to settle down. And then as it settles down, you'll find that your understanding of what causes the disturbance gets more subtle. And you can clear away disturbances that are more and more subtle. And Ajaan Lee gives the analogy. To get the mind to settle down is like cutting down a forest. You cut down the trees, but the trees are still there in a pile. With insight, you burn the trees. There's nothing left but fine ash. It's the same process, clearing things out, just that the clearing out gets more subtle and refined. In all cases, what you're trying to see is the Four Noble Truths. Sometimes you hear insight defined as seeing things in terms of the three characteristics. And the three characteristics do play a role, but the major role is the Four Noble Truths. And particularly you want to see how you're causing yourself disturbances through your craving and clinging, and how you don't have to, and you finally get to the point where you don't want to. And that requires that you take an inquisitive attitude to what's going on in your mind. You can just say, impermanent, stressful, not self, impermanent, stressful, not self. And it doesn't go very deep, because you don't see the role that you are playing in causing any suffering. That's the important thing. For instance, with pain. The first step in dealing with pain is to find a part of the body that is not in pain and to settle your attention there. So if there's a pain in the knee, don't focus on the knee, focus on other parts of the body that you can make comfortable by the way you breathe. It helps you to resist the temptation to focus on the pain, complain about the pain, trying to get rid of the pain. Is that better? Give it a try. And part of the mind will complain, why do I have to sit with pain? It's because you want to learn how not to be afraid of pain. If you're afraid of pain, people can take advantage of your fears. When aging comes, when illness comes, when you die, there's going to be pain. And if your mind gets scattered because of the pain, it's going to be in bad shape. So you want to be able to be with it, but not get upset by it. So you practice with it while you're still relatively healthy, relatively young, alive. When you feel confident in your ability to stay with the pain, stay with the parts of the body that are comfortable, the next step is to think of the comfortable breath energy in those comfortable parts spreading through the pain. Again, say there's a pain in your knee. Think of the comfortable breath going down the leg, through the pain in the knee, and then out the other side, out the foot. So the breath is not blocked by the pain. That way you begin to get rid of the perception that there's a wall around the pain. And you learn how not to be afraid of it. Then the next step is to actually focus directly on the pain itself and start asking questions about it. These questions are important. As the Buddha said, the most important inner quality to gain awakening is appropriate attention. And appropriate attention is a matter of asking the right questions. In this case, the questions are, what in the mind is causing pain in the mind around the physical pain? Our immediate reaction is, well, wherever there's physical pain, it has to affect the mind. But the Buddha says it doesn't have to. He says the mind is what creates the bridge so that a physical pain becomes a mental pain. So we learn, and those bridges are made out of your perceptions. We talked about this last night. The perceptions are what are called mental fabrications. And they have a big impact on your mind. So you want to start asking questions about the pain. What perceptions do you have around the pain that make it hard to bear? One of the questions may be, is the pain the same thing as the knee? You have to remind yourself that's not the case. The knee is made out of the 4 physical elements: earth, water, wind, fire. The pain is something separate. Sometimes the pain may seem to be glued to the earth element, which makes it seem solid. But if you hold in mind the perception that earth is one thing, the pain is something else, and that those 4 elements were there before the pain, and they're going to be there after the pain goes. So the pain is something separate. You can ask yourself, if you think that the pain has a bad intention toward you, then you remind yourself the pain has no intentions at all. It's just there. It's not trying to hurt you. It's just the body's reaction to sitting in one position. And the blood getting forced into the capillaries. This, by the way, is something that happens to every meditator. And if you're willing to sit with the pain on a regular basis, after a while you find that the capillaries begin to expand so that the blood can flow more freely. And then the opportunity for there to be pain in the knee goes less and less. Another question you can ask yourself, is the pain a solid block of pain, or is it individual moments of pain? And try to see it as individual moments that come and go, come and go, come and go. And when they come, are they coming at you, or are they going away. I told the story last night of being treated here in Singapore for back pain. Went to see a traditional Chinese medicine doctor. And he started rubbing oil in my back, and at first it felt good. And then he rubbed harder and harder till my skin was raw. Then he pulled out some bamboo whisks and started beating my back. And as I said last night, my first thought was, what bad karma do I have that I'm being beaten like this? But then I realized, again, if I was going to benefit from the treatment, I had to put up with it. Then I noticed that the pain, as soon as the bamboo hit the back, it seemed like the pain was going away from me, not coming at me, but going away from me. I held that perception in mind and was able to undergo the treatment without suffering from it. So that's an important perception. The pain is not coming at you, it is going away, going away, going away. Or you can ask yourself, where is the sharpest point of the pain in this, say in your knee? Try to locate it, and you find that it moves around. So you chase it. Instead of running away from the sharpest point, you go after it. And that changes the balance of power inside. Usually the pain is powerful because we try to escape it. But if you turn at it and run in its direction, it begins to run away. And you finally get to a point where the pain and the body seem to separate out from each other. The pain and your awareness separate out from each other. You see that they really are distinct things. This is a good lesson in insight. So you see that the problem is not the pain, it's your perceptions, it's what you're doing. This is why the Buddha said that the Dharma is like a mirror. It's for the mind to look at itself, not blame the world outside for its suffering, but to look at what it's doing to make itself suffer unnecessarily. And many of the Ajaans in Thailand have said that it was during the pain of an illness they got some of the most important insights in their meditation about the power of perception, how we misuse perception, but how we can learn how to use perceptions in a helpful way. So that we can stop causing ourselves suffering unnecessarily. The other type of disturbance, of course, is not physical, it's mental. You're sitting here meditating, and something comes up to disturb the stillness in the mind. And in the beginning, we used the techniques for dealing with the hindrances that I mentioned yesterday. But as the mind gets more and more subtle, the disturbances that you begin to notice are more and more subtle as well. You get to see a mind state as it's just beginning to form. And it can be something simple, like you're sitting here very quietly, and part of the mind says, this is boring, nothing's happening. Well, take that thought as your object to deal with. This is a disturbance. This is where it's useful to think about your mind as a committee. Many members with many different opinions. And somebody inside is tired of the meditation. Now the problem is if you start identifying with that voice, you're out. But if you look at it as simply one member of the committee, you can remind yourself, most of the members want to stay. You went to all this trouble to come and do this retreat. So you want to get something positive out of it. And the skill of staying quiet is an important skill. So when you're dealing with any unskillful mind state, the Buddha says you want to look for 5 steps. The first step is to see what originates that thought, or what originates that emotion. In other words, what inside the mind sparks that. And then you want to see that it will pass away. Sometimes we think that we have an emotion that lasts and lasts and lasts. Actually, what happens is it comes and then it goes, and then we pick it up again. And then it goes and we pick it up again. So that's what you want to look into. Why do we pick it up again? And this is where the Buddha says you want to look for the allure. Well, what is appealing about this? What's appealing about boredom? You might say, well, when you're bored, then you start looking for something else, some more entertainment. But is entertainment what your mind needs right now? Well, no. This is where the Buddha has you look at the drawbacks of that mental state. If you followed that mental state, where would it take you? You can do this with any emotion. Anger. Anger comes, you can tell yourself, when I get angry, then I have more power. I'm not a doormat. People can't step on me. I can show people that I can stand up for myself. We can do that without getting angry. And usually, when you're angry, you can't see the ideal state or the ideal reaction to the situation. So that's one of the drawbacks. Or this is where you can bring in those 3 characteristics, what the Buddha calls the 3 perceptions. That whatever pleasure you get out of this mind state is going to be inconstant. That, by the way, is the better translation of the word anicca. Sometimes anicca is translated as impermanent. But the fact that something is impermanent is not enough to let it go. But if you see that it's inconstant, it's unreliable, you can't depend on it, then you'll be more likely to see, oh, this is something I've got to get rid of, or an attachment that I have to learn how to outgrow. It's like building a house on a mountain. You know the mountain's impermanent, but as long as the mountain... Microphones are impermanent too. As long as the mountain doesn't move, you feel that you can build your house in a solid place. But if the mountain is in an area where there are a lot of earthquakes, you realize the mountain is unreliable, it's inconstant. Maybe it's not a good idea to build your house there. So anyway, you see whatever mind state that is, like the anger, or the lust, or the jealousy, it's unreliable. Because it's unreliable, it's stressful. Because it's stressful and unreliable, it's not worth laying claim to as you or yours. That's how the three characteristics function in insight. That's reminding yourself of the drawbacks. But there are other ways of seeing drawbacks as well. The important thing is you realize that you have been creating this problem because you feel that it's worth it. What you're trying to do is change the value judgment. So you realize that even though there's some appeal to whatever that mind state may be, there's an appeal to anger, there's an appeal to jealousy. Lust is very appealing. Lust is very strange. When we have a desire for somebody else, we often think that our desire makes us attractive. That's only very rarely the case. But if you can see the drawbacks, if you follow this particular mind state, where is it going to take you? In any way that you can see that it's going to take you someplace you don't want to go. And you realize you don't have to go. Then you can let it go. That's step number 5. So we've had 5 steps. Looking for the origination. 2, looking for the passing away. 3, looking for the allure. 4, looking for the drawbacks. Then 5, getting some dispassion that allows you to escape. Those are the steps for insight. And you can apply them to any mental disturbance. Now the reason we get the mind in concentration first, when we're dealing with the hindrances, we cut away the hindrances just enough to get them out of the way, so the mind can settle down. When the mind settles down, it can see itself a lot more clearly. And it can see these things as they begin to form on a very subtle level. All too often we're aware of our strong emotions only when they get very strong. And at that point it's hard to argue with them. You can argue with them, but it requires more force of will. When your mind gets really, really still, and there's a sense of well-being from the stillness, that makes the allure a lot less attractive. Also makes it easier to see. Because as we mentioned last night, often the allure of an unskillful mind state is something we're embarrassed about, so we hide it from ourselves. In many cases we go for something and we don't really know why. As the Buddha said, you want to see where your desires are located, where are they focused. For example, you may think you desire a particular person, but do you really desire the person, or are you attracted to your perception of the person, or your perception of yourself in relationship to the person? Are you attracted simply to desire itself? There are lots of places where your cravings can be focused. To see that, you have to get the mind really still and aware all around, which is why when we work on concentration and mindfulness, we try to focus on one spot, but we try to be aware of the whole body, make our awareness go all around. That way, any mind states that might be lurking in the shadows are easier to see. So this is how insight develops out of tranquility. You get the mind still, and then you look for any disturbance in that stillness. In the beginning, it's just dealing with the hindrances, getting them out of the way. But then the work gets more and more subtle. But it's basically the same principle. You want to maintain the stillness of your mind in the face of all kinds of different circumstances. Not only when you're sitting here with your eyes closed or doing walking meditation, but also when you're out in the world outside. You want to maintain your still center. And watch for the mind to see when it starts creating trouble for itself. It's in this way that tranquility and insight go together. Tranquility is a matter of getting the mind still. Insight is a matter of asking the right questions about how the mind is so creating disturbance for the stillness that it wants. So the two go together. The insight increases the stillness, and the stillness makes it possible to see more and more subtle insights. And as I said, the insights don't have to be expressed as seeing things as inconstant, stressful, and not self. You do want to see them in terms of the Four Noble Truths. What are you doing to disturb your own mind? And when you see the drawbacks of the disturbance, sometimes it's in terms of the three characteristics. Sometimes it's in your own personal terms. You basically see, this is something I've been doing, I don't want to keep on doing it anymore. Now I see that I don't have to. That's how insight and tranquility work together to free the mind. Before you leave meditation, think thoughts of goodwill once more. Think of whatever sense of peace or well-being you felt during the past session, dedicate it to others, either to specific people you know are suffering right now, or to all living beings in all directions. May we all find peace and well-being in our hearts. And with that thought, you can open your eyes. Do we have any questions?
Yeah. Good morning, Ajaan. Yeah, so I'm very grateful that you have come this year to give a retreat. Compared 2 years ago, you have only given a talk. So I'm grateful that you have stayed longer this time. So we have the benefit of having a retreat with you. Ajaan, last time you mentioned briefly about the Dana, Sila, and Bhavana support each other. So my question is, how does Dana support our practice of Sila, and how does the practice of our Sila support Bhavana? And I'm not sure whether does the practice of Bhavana support the practice of Dana. Same way. Thank you.
Okay. Dana gives you the opportunity to look at your intentions. Because when the Buddha said, he was asked one time, where should a gift be given? And he said, give where you feel inspired. Then the next question is, where when you give a gift, is it most beneficial? He says, now that's another question. And you would look into what your gift is, what your motivation is, who you're giving it to, and the results are going to happen as a result. And so it gets you used to looking at your motivation, because there are many levels of motivation. First, the lowest level is, I'm going to get this back, hopefully with interest. Higher than that is, it's not right that I have something that I don't share. That's a higher motivation. A higher motivation is simply that giving is a good thing to do. It's part of being a human being. And then finally you get up to the situation where it simply makes your mind serene to do this. You realize that you are not selfish, you're not a grasping, greedy person. And it makes it a lot easier for you to live with yourself. Your mind, your heart, it gets expanded. And that makes it easier to meditate. Because if you're constantly calculating, how am I going to gain this, how am I going to gain that, it's hard to get the mind to be still and at ease. So that you get a sense of well-being from the generosity. The same with virtue. Again, virtue makes you focus on your intentions. Why am I saying this? Why am I doing this? Because you can break a precept only intentionally, so you have to be very careful about your intentions. That focuses you there. To maintain your precepts also requires that you have to be mindful, to keep the precept in mind. We had a woman come to the monastery one time in Thailand, and she had never observed the 8 precepts before. She saw her friends observing the 8 precepts, I'll try it too. And so she's walking along in the afternoon, she sees a guava tree, and before she knows it, she's got a guava in her mouth. And so Ajaan Fung saw her and said, wait, what's that in your mouth? And she realized she'd forgotten her precepts. So you have to keep them in mind. You have to be alert to what you're doing. And you also have to be ardent in trying to do this well. Because there will be times, say you know some information, and some other person wants that information, and you're afraid that that person will abuse the information. How do you not give the information, but at the same time you don't lie? That's going to be a test for your discernment. So in the practice of the precepts, you're learning mindfulness, alertness, ardency, discernment, all of which are qualities that you're going to require for the meditation. Then as you meditate, okay, your mindfulness, ardency, alertness get better, so you can be more precise in observing the precepts. Your discernment gets better, so you can be more discerning in how you apply them. And the same thing with your generosity. You begin to see what kind of generosity really does make your heart feel good. You become a more discerning person. So they all work together. Now, it's not the case that your generosity has to be perfect before you observe the precepts, or your precepts have to be perfect before you meditate. But you try to develop all three qualities together. And, the practice of generosity and the practice of virtue also improve your integrity. You become a more truthful person. And you're really going to need that when you meditate, because it's very easy for people to lie. I'm a stream enter, I have no defilements. That's because you're hiding them. See, that's the kind of attitude you want to avoid. Does that answer your question?
I will contemplate over it.
Okay. You have to pretend that it's an ice cream cone.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Ajaan, for the talk and the motivation. And thank you to Gary and the team. I can hear so well now. Ajaan, every time when I meditate, there's a certain point, like halfway, I feel heat generate from my body. Is there any way, and I feel aversion to the heat, like sweaty and very warm. Is there any way to skillfully overcome the aversion?
Okay, well, one thing you can do is ask yourself, where are the liquid parts of my body right now? Those are cooler. And see if there's one part of your body that's cooler than other parts, and focus on that. And it's the same with the breath. You focus on one spot and then you spread it to fill the whole body. And that should cool things down. The more you focus on the idea of heat, the hotter you're going to get.
Ajaan, I had a question about a translation of one of Ajaan Lee's books that you did a while back. It's from 1988. Do you mind? Would it help if I refresh your memory by reading from it, from Craft of the Heart? So it's about the different kinds of dispositions of people. So he says, so he translated, people who tend towards anger or curiosity are said to excel through discernment. Their minds tend to develop insight meditation more than tranquility meditation, and they gain awakening quickly. People who tend towards desire or gullibility are said to excel through conviction. Their minds tend to develop insight meditation and tranquility meditation in equal measure, and they gain awakening at a moderate speed. And then the third group is people who tend towards worry and delusion are said to excel through persistence. Their minds have to develop a great deal of tranquility before they can develop insight meditation. So I read this a while back, and I was just wondering, how come Ajaan Lee pairs anger with curiosity, and then desire with gullibility, and then why is worry and delusion paired? So how do these pairings come about?
Okay, well, desire and gullibility are easy. When people have a lot of desire, and someone comes and says, I can give you a good deal. You buy my product for $10 and then you'll be able to sell it for $20 tomorrow. That's how people get cheated easily. It's because of their desire. If you don't have a lot of desire for things, this doesn't make sense. As for curiosity, people are trying to figure things out, and when something doesn't make sense to them, they're angry.
what about worry and delusion?
Okay. Worry is basically the idea that the more I worry about something, the more prepared I am for the future, which is very deluded. So you don't really know what's going to happen in the future, but you do know you will need some qualities like mindfulness, concentration, discernment. You're not going to develop those by just worrying.
Thank you, Ajahn.
But you will notice that in that book, at the end of this section, that Ajaan Lee says, we all have all these qualities. Because what he's doing in that book, to give you a little bit of history, the forest tradition got started in northeastern Thailand in the late 19th century. In the beginning of the 20th century, they came up with these new textbooks in Bangkok that were written by people who believed that nirvana was no longer possible, jhana was no longer possible. They wanted monks to be good sort of social agents. And so the lists of dharmas that they gave, explanations tended to fall in that direction. In that direction, also in the direction following the commentaries. The forest tradition was basically founded based on reading the Vinaya and the suttas. And so when Ajaan Lee was teaching in the 1930s, he had to explain the concepts of the basic Dharma concepts in terms of the forest perspective. And so he had to give the terms and their translations, and then he would squeeze the explanation so that it would fit with the forest tradition. So these 6 dispositions and the pairing of the dispositions, that comes in the commentaries. So Ajaan Lee had to explain it. But then at the end he says, we all have all those dispositions at one time or another.
Thank you, Ajahn. I also noticed that in Ajahn Lee's talks and Ajahn Huang's talks, they talk about jhana, and like Ajahn Lee talks about jhana in quite a lot of detail. Nowadays in the forest tradition, some teachers don't even talk about jhana at all. Yeah. So I was just wondering, is that due to it being more difficult, the conditions just more difficult nowadays? And what are the conditions that can help us?
Well, it's really more a question of personal inclination. There are several ways that the mind can get concentrated, and one of which is by just focusing on, say, a meditation word, and then the mind goes into a state that's called the state of light. And then from that state of light, you go into the formless states. You don't go through the steps of the jhanas. It just goes, sort of pushing it through, and then light appears. So some of the Ajaans, that's been their past experience. For them, explaining things in terms of jhana doesn't make sense because they haven't gone through, their concentration didn't go through those steps. Whereas people like Ajaan Lee, Ajaan Phra, Ajaan Suwat, they would talk a lot about jhana. I think it's interesting that the question came that some people said they never heard Ajaan Mun talk about jhana. Ajaan Suwat said he heard about it, he talked about it quite a lot actually. So I think again, Ajaan Mun would tailor his instructions to individual people. But one thing that was very important was realizing that the ability to do jhana is not something that comes in and out of fashion. People can do it still. In fact, that was what Ajaan Lee had to do when he was first teaching in Bangkok, was to convince people that jhana was happening, was possible. Because, as I said, the government wanted the monks to be teachers, and so one of the ways of saying monks can be teachers, well, they can't do jhana anyhow, so they might as well not be trying to meditate. Let's get them to teach in schools. So Ajaan Lee had to go against that. And I can tell you 2 stories. One is there was a Sumdet, which is a very high-ranking monk, who was sick, and he was very much opposed to the forest tradition. But he got sick, and so Ajaan Lee went to see him one time, bowed down, went to sit in a corner, and the old monk could feel this energy coming from Ajaan Lee. He said, "What are you doing?" And Ajaan Lee says, "I'm making a gift of stillness." And the old monk said, "Oh, whatever you're doing, keep on doing it, it feels good." And then as the monk began to recover, Ajaan Lee started giving him instructions in meditation. So he got into good concentration. He said, "My gosh, I've wasted my life as a monk. I thought this was impossible." So he had Ajaan Lee teaching other people as well. Now, other monks in the monastery were jealous of the attention that Ajaan Lee was getting. And they were again saying that Ajaan Lee is teaching people to be deluded, they can't get into Ajaan, it's impossible now. And so how did Ajaan Lee deal with that? One of his talents was he, in addition to having psychic powers, was he could actually loan some of his powers to other people. If you were a very impressionable meditator, he could give you a little something. There was this one old woman whose job was to wash the bathrooms in the monastery. And during her free time, she would come and sit and meditate with Ajaan Lee. And she got so that she could read people's minds. So whose minds does she read? She reads the minds of the monks in the monastery. She was shocked. So she goes and she tells the abbot, you know what these monks are thinking? She goes down the line. And he's saying, she's probably right. So he called the monks in and said, you've got to watch out, these people can read your innards. So people who tell you that Ajaan is no longer possible, don't believe them. It still is possible. It's just that some people have more of a inclination and for their minds to settle down in that way than other people do.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Thanajan. So I'm trying to formulate this. I have heard from someone that they stopped practicing because Buddhism doesn't bring in the ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also the question about spirit and soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if it's a matter of semantics because we have the different realms of existence and not quite sure how these words fit into those. As well as I wonder about the vehicle which transfers or goes to the next life with the cause and effect or the rebirth, the karma. So I'm not really sure if that's actually...
Okay, you've got two questions here. One is about ancestors. And there's a lot of merit-making dedicating merit to your past ancestors. We don't worship our ancestors. And we respect our parents for having given us life, and then we respect our grandparents for having given them life. But you also have to take into account that sometimes your ancestors have passed away and they've gone down to a lower realm. So we don't worship them, as we say, as a deva or something. But we do dedicate merit to them. Now, as for what gets reborn, that's one of those questions the Buddha said, don't ask. And the question is, you're not responsible for what gets reborn, you're responsible for how you do rebirth. That's something you can do something about.
Thank you.
Good morning, Venerable. I've got a few questions.
Okay.
Okay. When you are physically very tired, when do you say that, let's call it a day, and go to sleep and meditate another time? That's the first question.
Well, it depends. If you find that you really cannot stay awake, go to sleep. But you have to test it first. And one of the things the Buddha says is, change the topic of your meditation to something that's more energizing. If you've memorized a chant, repeat the chant to yourself, or repeat it out loud. Get up and do some walking meditation. And if you're still sleepy while you're walking, go to bed. Test it first, though.
Thank you. Second question is, being a senior monk like yourself, you get offered a lot of food, which is more than what you can consume. What goes through your mind when you are choosing the food, choosing what you eat?
Choosing what will be healthy. I have a heart condition, so I have to be very careful not to take too many sweets. In fact, I've got a long list of foods that I'm not allowed to eat. This is my problem. I have a Western doctor and a Chinese doctor, and they all give these different lists about, especially you find when you start having a heart condition, and you hear different people say, you can't eat this, can't eat that, can't eat this. The only thing that's safe is water. So you figure out, well, what do I need to keep my strength going? But that's the principles. What was actually healthy?
Third question is, you were talking a lot about being observant. So regarding this topic, is being observant a quality that is we are able to train, or is it innate? The other thing, would you like to answer
It
that?
can be trained. It can be trained.
The other question is, on the same topic is, what good does observation, what good does being observant when you have no backing of knowledge or solutions to what you can observe?
Okay, you just start trying to notice connections. When this happens, what happens as a result? When this happens, what happens as a result? And then after a while you get a sense of which connections are the important ones. But you want to be very careful. The Buddha said that the Dharma is nourished by commitment and reflection. Now, he gives you some instructions on what to do, and then you do them as best you understand. Then you reflect on the results. And if they're not good enough, then you ask yourself, okay, what am I doing wrong? Maybe I misunderstood the instructions. Maybe I haven't been very careful in watching myself as I follow the instructions. And just keep questioning like that.
So is it innate or is it trained?
Yeah, it can be trained. Because especially with the issue of appropriate attention, which is asking the right questions, the Buddha spent his whole lifetime trying to teach people how to ask the right questions. And the people who were willing to listen to him, they benefited. There's a book by Ajaan called Straight from the Heart. It's about a series of lessons he was giving in meditation to a woman who was dying of cancer. And some of those questions I asked earlier today about dealing with pain. Does the pain have an intention? Is it a solid block? Those questions came from that book. You can start saying, oh, that's a question I never asked before, let's look into it. When you look at the Dharma talks where the Buddha gives a Dharma talk and people gain awakening, almost all of them are a form of question and answer. Look at this, look at that, what do you see? What do you think? What do you think? And when you see something from a different angle, you see things you didn't see before, and you see, oh, I'm doing something really stupid here, I can stop it. Because everything you need to know is right here. It's just you're not asking the right questions.
So, on that line of thought, being very observant is not for everyone. It's for some people who is more adept in being observant, because most people are obviously not that observant.
Hit them over the head. Ajaan Fuang always said that as a child he was not very smart, but being around Ajaan Lee taught him he had to be more observant. And part of it was, and this is the way Ajaan Fuang taught me. It was like if I didn't notice something, he would say, what's wrong with you? Why can't you see this? So you learn to look.
I've always had this feeling that you are able to answer my question to the point, but for some teachers, they always hover around the point, but not really there. It's somewhere there, but not really there. Is this like?
It's a skill,
or is it just experience?
It's experience. Yeah. And again, this was Ajaan Fuang's method. The knife right through the ribs. And then he pulls it out.
Thank you, Ajaan. I'm blessed to be here.
Tapping on this brother question of observant, I want to ask that the observance of the qualities during the meditations, as you have mentioned that while we are having the breath energy, the mindfulness, we are also looking into the outside, like we're walking on the path in the gardens, there are other things around to observe. Compared to, like, let's say in our normal day life, let's say I actually love to draw, I can observe the details of the facial expression. I can copy exactly what a photo or the expression of a person to do a pencil drawing. That kind of qualities, the observant, is it almost the same as during the meditations, that the attentions that we actually put into?
Whatever skills you have, reflect on those skills and see how they apply. And this would be one of the ways of being observant, just in being observant of the details. Other ways of being observant are being observant about, again, cause and effect. When you do this, what happens? When you do this, what happens? Which is better?
Okay. Then another second question is on the behalf of my friend. He actually shared with me that he has a very good meditations when he was actually sitting, but to a stage whereby he don't feel anything inside, and then he can sit for very long. But he know that he's still sitting. Then when he when he come up from that meditation, I asked him, what do you observe inside? Then he can't share anything, just nothing. So is that the meditation? Because it's very different when I came here. There are so many observed to different spots that we have to be so awake. And then it's very different from what my friend has shared with me. So I think, is there anything, maybe Ajaan can share with me the difference between these two?
Okay, there is a type of meditation that's called delusion concentration. The name is a giveaway. Where things are very quiet, but you lose all sense of the body. And you're not really clear about where you are focused. You come out, and it was very quiet, but if you ask, where were you focused? I don't know. And that gets caused by when the breath gets very, very comfortable, you drop the breath and you focus on the comfort. And just stay with that sense of ease and comfort, and everything begins to blur out. So, he's not going to like that explanation.
Okay, that's my last question. Because after this retreat, we will be back to our usual life. So, although we have to sitting meditations and walking meditations to observe our breath, but due to our very busy, hectic lifestyle, so how do we actually apply the techniques in our very busy lifestyle to actually maintain the practice, other than on the normal routine that we do our sitting in the morning, but on the normal day, how do we actually practice?
Okay, so the Buddha says you want to practice restraint of the senses. In other words, when you look at something, ask yourself, why am I looking? Am I looking for the purpose of gaining information, or am I looking for the purpose of lust, for the purpose of anger? Which quality in my mind is actually doing the looking? The same as when you listen, engage with the other senses. Now, to do this well, so you don't feel like you're being constricted, try to breathe as calmly as you can, as much as you can as you go through the day. When you have a few free minutes, just say, okay, breathe through any tension that's built up. Make that as your kind of your automatic knee-jerk reaction. If you're sitting at a meeting, you're sitting at a red light, breathe. And then when you notice, when you're looking at something, ask yourself, out of this committee in my mind, who's doing the looking? Like when you turn on the computer doesn't turn itself on. You turn it on, you have a purpose. What's your purpose? And if you realize that purpose was not skillful, stop.
Thank you, Ajaan. Yes.
Good morning, Ajaan. About the 7 steps that are explained in the method 2, regarding the 6th and 7th steps, unifying the awareness throughout the body. Not quite sure if I'm doing it right. Is there a correct way to do it, or there is no one correct?
There's no one technique, but it's more kind of an intuitive thing. Does it feel like the body is in harmony as it breathes? Or does it feel like the different parts of the body are fighting each other? And if they're fighting each other, what can I do to bring them into harmony so that all the breath energies flow together? So it feels comfortable breathing in, comfortable breathing out. Everybody's breathing together.
So is it more like breathing with the whole body?
And again, remember the breath is not the air, it's the energy flow. So wherever there's tension that gets in the way of the energy flow, okay, think of releasing that tension. And things will flow more smoothly.
Thank you, Ajaan.
Morning, Ajaan. Is observations, like what just now in the meditation experience, whereby you reach a state of, I don't know what is it. I'm aware of the state where it's like things are empty, or it's like an empty space. Then how does the observations come in? What do I observe?
Well, ask yourself.
I'm aware of certain states that I'm in. Yeah, I'm in control. I can bring it back to my breath. But I just curious, where is the observation part of it?
The observation is, what did you do to get there? 1, 2, is that a good state to be in? What do you learn from it?
Do I have to put a meaning to it? Or?
No, don't put a meaning to it. Just ask yourself, what is this good for? 1, how do I get there? 2, is it useful? And what is it useful for?
So again, I don't get it.
In other words, there's some states of concentration that are useful just for resting. Other states of concentration are useful for seeing clearly what's going on in the body, what's going on in the mind. In this particular state, which use does it serve?
What is it used for?
What is it useful for?
Am I trying to give a meaning to it?
I would say don't give meanings to it, just ask yourself, if I get this state of mind, what can I do with it? Some states of mind are just bing, you rest, but you don't learn anything. And sometimes that's what you need, sometimes you just need to rest. Other states of mind, things are very clear, what's going on in the mind is very, very clear to you. And then you use that for more insight.
When we are in the states, right? Is there objective to it? As to being, or like for example, if I'm in the state, is it my objective to make it even longer?
Well, if you want to study it, make it longer, see what happens.
I get bored. And I can get it longer, but then up to a stage, I just want to get out of it. Yeah, is that what the practitioner is supposed to do?
Well, again, it depends on how clear the mind is. If it's a very clear state, then you want to maintain it. And then see what comes up to threaten that state, and see what you can do to get past whatever that disturbance is.
So, I mean, does it mean that try to stay in the state longer?
So you get to study it.
But up to a stage is that.
Yeah, if you see, I'm hearing nothing's happening, I don't see anything, get out.
Yeah. No, usually is that I get out is not because I don't see anything, but it's that it's like just time to get out.
Well, sometimes you say, I'm getting bored here, it's enough of this. Okay, you're not here for entertainment, you're here to master a skill. So, okay, even though I'm bored, I'm going to stick with it. And then learn how to get past your boredom.
I'll try to observe it even more.
Okay.
Next time.
What else?
Morning, Ajaan. Here's a question about intent. Research and experience tells us that music is pretty useful in healing. Sometimes you do rhythmic tasks, it's useful to get into the rhythm of things to make it more efficient. Why is there a precept against it as if it's a bad thing?
There's no precept against chanting. You can chant instead. No precept against chanting. Arang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava, whatever. Because music can be healing sometimes, but it also can pull you away. It creates a whole other world for the mind. And we're trying to get centered in the body. But one of the reasons why we chant is to have some of the good effects of music, but without the distractions.
So, in application, when we are doing certain things and the mind starts to go into some tune, is good practice to switch to chanting? Thank you.
Thank you, Ajaan. My question is, every day we, as a layperson, right, so we are busy in the day, so at night, do we do a reflection of what's gone during the day? And then if it's good things, we'll remember it, or then bad things, what do? We remorse or, yeah.
Okay, if you realize that you did something wrong, it's like, I want to learn from that and not do it again. And then think about how can I avoid making that mistake again the next time. And then lots of goodwill for yourself, lots of goodwill for everybody else.
So when during the night sitting, then we have to go through the day, what we have done.
Wait until at the end of the sit. We've been sitting and meditating, get the mind as quiet as you can first. Then at the end of the sit, go through the day. Otherwise, going through the day will fill up the whole meditation.
Yeah, I think so. You'll be go into the why I do this.
Right. Say, okay, I'm not going to think about that until I've had some quiet time. Then you can think about it.
Okay, my second question is about the food we eat. Is it that we need to avoid eating meat and we should be eating more vegetarian?
That's entirely up to you. How does your body react to a vegetarian diet? Now, some people cannot survive on a vegetarian diet. Their genetics are such that they need meat. The Buddha didn't say that you have to be vegetarian.
Yeah, because when I told my husband to eat more vegetable, he said he will not have strength if he doesn't eat the meat. So
give him eggs.
Okay, the last question is about the dementia. You know, this mental disease, the dementia. Yeah, because in Singapore, we've seen a lot of old folks having dementia. So I'm not sure if one day we also have this illness, then how would we meditate?
Okay, what you do before then is that you try to develop as much mindfulness and as much compassion as possible. Because these qualities, even in a person who has dementia, the good qualities that you've developed stay with you. And so even if you have dementia, if you are a kindly demented person, it's much better than an angry demented person.
So we need to start now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Ajaan. Hi, Ajaan. Ajaan, thank you for the guidance in the meditations. Can I check with Ajaan? I ask on behalf of someone, who is always meditating, but there are some point that he has a lot of energy, but at the end, and anyway, he has a blockage of energy. So he tends to sit to position in such a way like tilt his head, all this to adjust the energy. So he has so-called almost gave up on meditation because he just feel that it go nowhere, it blocks. So he always adjusts without realizing it, just adjusts, you know.
The adjusting is no problem. Just again, think of the breath energy flowing throughout the whole body, in line with what Ajaan Lee describes. And it's normal that when there's a release of tension in one part of the body, it will have an effect on other parts of the body. And it's okay. No problem.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Yesterday you mentioned that when we kind of observe the things in the mind, what we want to do is to find skillful actions with the defilements. Is there a time where just seeing it as it is the most skillful action?
As the Buddha said, there are two types of causes of suffering. Some that will go away when you just look at them. Others where you actually have to actively counteract them. Now there's some people who say, well, just watch all your mind states and they will go away. Well, they'll go away, but they'll come back. So if it's a case like that, that means that's when you have to exert some energy.
That means if it's something that's recurring, then we have to kind of adjust the way we...
Right.
Thank you.
It's time.
I believe there are two more questions, if that's okay, Ajahn.
Okay.
Ajahn, sorry. What would be the best way to support someone who is dying in their last moment as part of our teachings and our tradition?
We'll try to get their minds, one, make sure they're not worried about anything they're leaving behind, like not worried about their family, not worried about their work. Secondly, try to remind them of the good things they have done and when they've been generous, when they've been virtuous. Because sometimes when you're dying, some very fearful things may appear. And if you have some confidence in the goodness that you've done, you say, well, I haven't been that bad. And then you can get past it. So make sure they're not worried, make sure they're not, that they have confidence in their goodness. Those are the two most important things.
Thank you.
Jen, it's an honor to be able to pay respects to you in person. I have a question about one-pointedness versus broad awareness. Is it something that should be cultivated at the same time, or one is a progression of the other?
Could you say that again?
One-pointedness versus broad awareness. Yeah.
They're two very useful skills. There are times when the mind really needs to rest and just one point, just stay there. And other times when you have more energy, then you try to develop full body awareness.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Yeah. I think there are no more questions, so we can end the session.
Okay.
Yeah, let's sadhu 3 times to rejoice in the sharing. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's pay respects to Ajahn with 3 bows.